The Randall Report, Season 1, Episode 28.
Wow, good day to you, sir. How's it diddling? How was your weekend?
Nothing exciting.
No?
How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Welcome, everybody, to the Randall Report. And so, yes, I guess today we're going to be discussing the ongoing saga of Britain's apparent travel down the proverbial U-bend, politically speaking, economically speaking, and otherwise. We're going to discuss the continuing trials and tribulations of one Liz Truss, as she desperately tries to cling on, of course, to the floating log that is the remainder of her political career. Which is having very great difficulties. It rotates in the water of keeping hold of, and of course, a lot's happened in the last week. She's a bit fucked, isn't she?
Yeah, it's not looking good, is it?
You've had the deputy banker, the deputy ex-deputy governor, I think, Sir Charles Bain of the Bank of England, saying that this. It's disingenuous to say that it is a global phenomenon, which is, of course, the mantra she has been peddling since before winning the leadership. She was her mantra of helping the British people because of the terrible energy bills and everything globally that was causing all of the furore being down to Vladimir Putin. I mean, he can be blamed for an awful lot, but it's a bit rich. And of course, now we've got Jeremy Hunt as Chancellor. Yes. Probably the less about him, the better. But he's now done away with the what hasn't already been done away with over the past week, has done away with the central plank of her whole, which her whole mantra was based on, really, was the fact that look what she was doing to save the British public from the terrible blight of these high energy bills. So do you think she's time that she just quit?
It's sad to see what's been going on the last week, especially with Kwasi Kwarteng, because essentially they came together to create this new sort of policy. She was all for it, told him to go ahead.
Well,
he pushes forward with all of these new measures with the Prime Minister's consent. Well, he then goes away for 2 weeks, whatever it was, comes back in a few days, he comes back and he's sacked. Why is he sacked? Because the policies weren't good enough. But it's your policies. So she creates the policy, she makes this man go forward and push it towards the public. They implement it. Everything goes to hell. She takes no responsibility and she blames Kwasi Kwarteng and he's gone.
Hello.
I mean, does it not essentially destroy his political career?
Well, it's destroyed his political career. No doubt their friendship too, because they've been long-time friends. So I should think that's fairly strange.
But obviously she did it.
Fucking Christmas card there.
But ultimately, it was one of those. Either he has to go, or she has to go, and essentially it was she.
Where's her sense of morality to accept that whole situation instantly became untenable, and not to simply go right? Well, I need to step aside and let somebody else have a go, because clearly, to still maintain it's everyone else but her. Just now looks, if it wasn't so bad, it would be comical.
It is comical.
But the point, what was leaked over, I believe, just before the weekend, the fact that one of those central planks that caused the jitters was the abolition of the top rate of tax. And that was completely her idea, and he actually was trying to resist it. So... And then he's the one that gets sacked. I've seen some wonderful things on Facebook, I have to say, as an aside, not least him and Liz Truss, mocked up in the cover of the old Grease. Remember the musical Grease album? You're the one that I want and all that kind of thing. Kamikaze. Thick Lizzie and Kamikaze. I mean, seriously. I mean, for a leader to go from winning the leadership only 39 days ago to that kind of description is
Did you see when she meets King Charles, and then under his breath he said, "Oh dear, you again."
Yes. I didn't see the "you" again. I just heard the "oh dear, oh dear," which was like, "Oh God, what have you done?"
So he's made his position patently clear, which I thought was quite funny.
We said this weeks ago. We felt she was incompetent. We felt that she was economically illiterate even before she stepped into number 10. And that now has been abundantly proved. But why is she still there? I mean, the question's been raised this morning on the news a number of times. What is the point of Truss?
The Conservative Party feel that it can only make matters worse by removing her so quickly into her premiership.
Well, there's been three Tories that stood up over the weekend and said, for God's sake,
Yeah. And in fact, the 1922 committee will start pushing for removal as well. But I mean,
I think they will. They made a comment yesterday.
There's something of a political bubble where they seem to think that just keep her in power because it will look less bad than to put someone new in such a short space of time. Well, they don't want to admit that they've made such a gargantuan error that they feel better to have her in place and to see. I mean, what might happen is that they keep her in place, they'll call an election, they'll know they'll lose it, but they might lose it to a lesser degree. And then as soon as they become the opposition, they'll sack her straight away, and then they'll get a new prime minister in place to see us through for the next 5 years. And so hopefully they're neither...
You mean in opposition?
In opposition, yeah.
Yeah.
There is no way...
There's no way they're going to
There's no way to win. No. So it's just a question of damage control.
Yeah.
Like, how many seats will we lose? How many seats will we lose?
Well, the estimate this morning is 200.
Okay, but how many will we lose if Truss is in power? How many will we lose if another prime minister's in power? And I think they're trying to weigh that up to try and figure out.
I think it's fairly clear. She's got to go. She's an absolute incompetent. Every day she's there, she's actually making the whole thing worse. The best thing the Tory party could do right now is fess up to an almighty mistake, blame it on the members because the MPs wanted Sunak in abundance. Blame it on the members for having made a poor choice, maybe for all the right reasons, but nevertheless the wrong choice, and start again. Whilst they dig in and pretend that there isn't a problem, or that the problem's eminently solvable, which it isn't, because even though they might be able to study the markets with this new plan, the reality, the die is now cast. Surely.
It's beyond that, I think. You're right.
Way beyond it. Yeah. I mean, it is clear that borrowing costs have pushed up way above the level of everywhere else, so the likelihood of recession becomes greater. Hunt's got rid of the cap, what would have been the $2,500 energy price cap. So that is going to have a real material effect on people's pockets.
But the cap was only ever an average.
Yes.
Based on average usage of an average household. It was never a fixed amount anywhere.
No, it was a unit price. Exactly. But the point is that...
but I think that was disingenuous in the first place. A lot of people, rightly or wrongly, thought, right, I won't get charged more than $2,500. Because it wasn't because it wasn't explained properly. It wasn't explained that this is just an average per unit cost per average household.
Yes.
If you consume a ton load more, your bill's going to go through the roof.
Well, it should have been explained as this is where we're going to cap the unit price at, which will mean for the average usage that you're going to be paying somewhere around this amount. But if obviously you've got 4 or 5 bedrooms, you're going to be paying a lot more. It was never explained.
No.
Well, of course, and that's another blight on her very short.
But they're saying end of the week. They're saying by the end of the week, she'll either remain in power or they'll get rid of her.
Well, I think she'll go. Personally, I think she'll resign. I think at the moment
she won't resign. They'll force her out. No.
I think that she thinks at the moment she won't, but I think they will make it, how can I say, pretty well impossible for her to stay and leave the way open to allowing an anointment rather than it look as though they killed her off.
The embarrassment.
Does that make sense?
The embarrassment of having to go outside the doors of Number 10 to deliver your resignation speech after a month.
Well, look at that fucking speech last week. That 9-minute, 53-second press conference. I mean, it was a car crash.
Yeah, but it wasn't it?
It was growth. And now we've got a new chancellor. It's cut. I mean, seriously, what happened to, this is an impetuous book, what happened to the manifesto then, which the Tory party won an 80-seat majority under Boris Johnson, promising 50,000 more nurses, 20,000 more police officers, God knows how many million more GP appointments. So,
name me one government that follows a manifesto.
Yeah, but
yeah, nobody is the answer to that. So there we go.
But
don't use that as a as a whipping post.
Well, in other words, you're saying they can say what they like, get into power, trash it all, keep changing leader,
like every party does at every occasion.
But hang on a minute.
They make promises, they can't meet the promises, and then they're out.
But they kept a lot of his promises.
Did he?
Yes, he did. He spent an enormous amount on health and education. He increased social mobility in this country, and they were responsible for the minimum wage. Many things happened under that Labour.
And we're still no better off than we were 20 years ago. So
we're still fucked. Okay.
A lot of the money on the NHS was spent on a computer system that cost billions that was never introduced.
That never worked. No.
You know, waiting times still kept on rising up.
Well, I've got to say,
middle management and upper management were paid 3 times the amount that they were.
You're not wrong there.
With the NHS, it's not key. On a very short note about the NHS, a lot of people say that we need to give more money to the NHS. But the problem isn't that. It's where the money's going to within the NHS that's the issue.
Well, it's how we spend.
Because if you have tens of thousands of employees on sort of 100, 150 plus each, and a lot of them are sort of doing...
He means 150 grand, not 150 quid.
150,000.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of those positions are duplicated and triplicated and quadrupled, you know, across different divisions.
Yeah.
But no one has actually gone in to really excise and streamline the NHS and to sort of really deliver the funds where it's needed.
Well, it's always
which is literally at the patient level, not necessarily at the management level.
It's always something that every government that gets into power, whatever party, has makes it their thing to tinker with. I've noticed this, you know, it always happens. And the Labour Party tend to spend more on things sort of
social aspects,
improve to a certain extent, and they did. And then the Tories get in and they trash it. Always under the guise that obviously they're spending too much money. I mean, Hunt's doing it right now. He is talking about cuts, austerity. He says not, but in essence, it is because the argument is they're already cut to the bone. So where can they find these so-called efficiency savings? There has never been a success, by the way, of government and efficiency savings. It's a way of how saying, we'll do this, that, and the other by cutting.
Well, in the mid-2000s, they cut 20% out of the NHS.
Yeah.
Across the board. I had a lot of friends in
yes, but
in the medical side, and they were essentially saying one way or another, 20% of all expenditure needs to be reduced, and they did it. They had to. They had no choice. But they found it. They found a way to do it, and the NHS survived. So it can be done again.
Well, of course. I mean, but it starts with actually having, in my mind, it starts with having a better plan, and a plan that lasts 20 years and not 5 minutes. And actually involved in that plan is how we deal not only with the issues of social care, bed blocking, which is one of the biggest issues, of course, to do with the fact that the social care system is so bad, but also from the point of view of preventative. We can't keep, we've got to have a better system that educates people not to end up looking like, like they've eaten all their neighbours. I mean, sorry, but, we have a major health issue in this country relating to fat.
But you also can't dictate someone's lifestyle. If someone chooses to do that to themselves, there's nothing you can do about it. This is a societal issue. This isn't a medical issue.
That's why education becomes supremely important. You're telling me that most people who are lard arses are happy to be lard arses?
Although they may not have a choice. It depends on what sort of access to foods you can get your hands on.
Well,
if you have a really low income and fruit and vegetables and meat and fish are not openly available to you because you don't have the means to purchase those things.
Well, yeah, they are.
You have to base it not only on level of obesity, but you also have to look at their economic situation.
You're telling me that all these people going to food banks, and I don't want to decry the people that I know that are using food banks that are truly in a desperate situation. But I'm talking about those that choose to go to food banks before cutting off their Netflix account or various other things. I mean, what concerns me is the fact that notwithstanding what we're talking about, obviously, is government mismanagement. But nevertheless, if you can't instill through education some kind of system that makes people more aware, I mean, the ordinary education system, where it doesn't teach people how to shop and how to cook and how to do things on a real lean budget. And let me tell you,
what's that got to do with school?
Because that's where it starts.
No, it starts with parents. Your parents teach you these things.
Yeah, but if the parents,
if the school is not there to teach you how to live your life. The school is there to teach you maths, English, and geography.
No, I don't kind of agree with that. I kind of agree that it needs to teach you maths, history, and geography, and English, or whatever.
That's what they're there for.
But and science. But it does need to also teach you some life skills, and some in those life skills that doesn't involve spending your entire free time queuing outside the fucking chicken shop.
You take that from your parents, not from school.
But if you've got a generation,
what's the point of having a parent if that's the case?
Well, if you've got,
it doesn't teach you these things.
Well, there are.
Well, okay.
There is a generational issue.
So the issue is not with the education system. The issue is with the parental system. If your parents aren't teaching you the correct way to live your life, don't blame it on the school. Don't blame it on the education.
Some children are being sent to infant school, and they haven't even been potty trained by their parents. I mean, seriously, and we're talking about vast numbers. We're not talking about one or two people.
Yeah, in fact, they tell you if your child isn't potty trained, don't bring them to school.
I mean,
which is fair enough. Why does a teacher have to be dealing with that? It's not
I don't disagree with you.
Well, there you go. It's not an educational issue.
But it's a generational issue, and part of that can be resolved in starting to educate people how they can actually do better for themselves within the means that they have, rather than...
Yeah, thankfully we don't live in a communistic society where we're taught how to live by our government.
Well, yes.
So there we go. As much as you'd like it the other way.
Welcome to Xi Jinping's China. We will move on to that later, really, because that might be a little something in there. But okay, so here we've got this lame duck government. You think that perhaps she's going to stick around for a while because the Tories are too damned embarrassed to get rid of her?
I never said that. I'm saying that's what I believe the Tory party is doing, because they simply don't want the headache of having to bring someone new in and what that might mean.
But surely
in the elections down the line.
Surely the MPs who are going to be putting their letters in, no doubt, to Sir Graham Brady in abundance, are all thinking, if we don't get sharper now, I mean, because everybody wants to believe in their own mind, there's still a half chance.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise you're not going to be in politics if you don't think there's a half chance of still turning the tide. The old adage, a week is a long time in politics. So surely most of them will be sitting there going, my job is under threat. My nice MP salary and expenses is all under threat if we carry on as we are. Better get sharper. We'll stick the letter into Sir Graham Brady, get over 50% of us at it, anoint a new leader. Maybe then there's a half chance.
You get paid more.
You
get paid more in opposition anyway.
If you're an opposition MP, but if you've lost your seat, you're not an opposition MP, are you? Most of the Tories will be sitting there, especially in the Red Wall, the 80 military seats that were taken from Labour, will be sitting there thinking, we can't get rid of her, because otherwise it's a racing certainty that we're screwed at the next election.
Well, we'll find out in a week or two, won't we?
I think we'll find out in hours and days.
Maybe.
I think what's happened today is the final nail in her coffin, because it was the only and the central plank of her failed the Trussonomics, as it's been dubbed, her failed mini budget that she had. Poor old Cami Kwarteng deliver.
Yeah.
So I think today the fact that energy cap's gone and all that she banged on about from all those debates before she won and since.
It's true what they were saying. It's interesting. We'll see what happens on Wednesday at PMQs. I think that will really tell us how long she's got left.
Yeah.
Depending on how things go on Wednesday.
I've got to say, she'll have some brass neck just appearing.
Well, she can't not, can she?
Well, no. Well, she can feign woke up this morning with a bad cold. Let me put Jeremy Hunt in there. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, joking aside, I think really what did for her was that fucking press conference.
Yeah, it was bad.
It showed that once the gloss had come off, she really is clueless. A bit like the moment that woman fell over at the debate.
Well, the press secretary.
Yes.
Well,
and she stood there and she went like this.
Well, the press secretary clearly wrote that, said keep to these sort of speaking points. Keep talking about positivity in the economy, following the right path. It needs a bit of time. But the fact that you just keep on repeating it doesn't make it so.
No.
No, she'll be gone soon now.
Yeah, well, I reckon this week. So we'll have a little. Do you want to take any bets on that?
No, because I agree with you.
We're on the same page. She's toast, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. So what do you think? Do you think Hunt, no matter what happens for her, do you think Hunt will manage to stabilise things, or could it suddenly lurch again after he's filled in the blanks this afternoon in Parliament?
It's like we were saying before. People have a very short memory of Jeremy Hunt and the disaster when he was health minister.
It was bloody awful, wasn't it?
He was.
Exactly.
He was despised. He was absolutely despised.
Yes.
And,
well, we won't.
And it's
amazing to mention his nickname. course.
And it's amazing that she even gave him the position. To be honest,
Jeremy Hunt's political career.
I'm not quite sure how that worked, but I don't think he has a hope in hell to make things right. Really,
I don't. That's interesting. Right, yeah, that's fantastic. I put in Jeremy Hunt's political career, and it said, "Sorry, we couldn't find that page." Oh dear, that's fantastic. That is amazing. Jeremy Hunt's political career, and my computer glitched and said he didn't have one.
Yeah, I mean, what exactly can he do to make things right?
Look, he can't. He might be able to instill calm in markets from going any worse than where they are now, at least for the moment. But I can't see, while she's in number 10, that the markets can remain stable, because the question will come over viability.
But it's got nothing to do with her. The economic markets are already unstable.
Yeah,
there are so many externalities that are affecting our economy, regardless of what she's done.
Yeah, external issues.
Yeah, what she's done is just a blip.
Externalities a word. Is proportionality a word?
Yes,
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I remember until a year or two ago, I'd never heard of adding ality to everything.
You can do.
Because seasonality is another one. Well, it's seasonal. What's seasonality? What's the ality bit? Sorry, but it's just
a more broad term.
Yeah, it's something I've pondered as I write.
Well,
where these things come from.
Yeah.
But anyway,
we're heading towards a global recession, essentially.
Well,
so it's really got nothing to do with her. I mean,
well, what about the ex-governor of the bank, ex-deputy governor of the Bank of England, to say that it's a global phenomenon is disingenuous? Because we are in a really because of what she did.
By her claiming that the result of her actions is because of global issues is disingenuous.
Yes.
But the idea that you can resolve our economy through national means and through doing sort of internal policies and assuming that we'll get out of this
is
also completely disingenuous.
I agree.
So it's on two sides.
Yeah.
What she did made things worse.
Globally, we're having to face up to an impending recession. The first one we've had in really
we've just made our situation a little bit worse than anyone else.
Yeah.
In Europe, at least.
Yeah.
The one benefit we have is that when it comes to energy, we're less reliant on Russian gas and all the rest of it. So we should at least be able to shield ourselves from an element of that. Yeah. Our issue wasn't really that; it's now the interest rate rise.
But surely, if you want to steady the markets, the next move after if Jeremy Hunt stays successful as a consequence of today and it stays a little bit steady, is to say, okay, now you've got to shift on out back to wherever you came from. Is because the markets and the sentiment wants to see that we have put somebody in number 10 who looks to be in charge and not just playing in charge while other people seemingly are in charge. Surely now we've got to this point, and it's like, well, as the headlines said this morning, the game is up.
The only thing we have to do is try to improve the value of our currency.
Right.
Is to get the pound up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Which will help ease inflation, which will help ease interest rate spikes here and there.
Yeah.
If we can do that, even by a few basis points,
yes,
will make our lives a lot easier. We were at 109 at one point against the dollar. Now we're at 113.
Yeah, which is still shite.
But it's better than it was. But that's a big difference.
Yes.
4 cents is a huge leap.
Yes.
So if we can get to that sort of 117, 118 level, that's where we were back in August. It wouldn't be great, but it would be. But it's an improvement.
But surely
it's like a buffer. That's all.
Yeah, but surely part of the way to get there is to go. Sorry, Liz. Nice try. Sling your fucking hook.
Yeah, but that's
the perception elsewhere is that we've taken strong enough and bold enough decisions, not just to install a new chancellor and and backtrack, but to actually have some kind of real credible plan. Because now all they're doing is playing.
But it doesn't affect.
A rescue bit.
But it doesn't affect the economy. It's like a blip. It will change the market for a day or two, and then it will stabilise again.
Yeah,
these things mean nothing.
No,
in the grand scheme of things. It doesn't matter who's in charge. It's more a case of public opinion. To have someone else.
I can't see how she's got.
To have someone else in power might make us feel a little bit better. It might get us out to spend a little bit more money than we would have done. But if you take everything into account, everything is slowing down. Everyone is pulling back.
Yes, you've got a recession. Once that die is cast, it makes people pull back further, and then it becomes a self.
Even in the United States, things are so bad that they were saying that you have Thanksgiving coming up, and that a lot of families are simply skipping Thanksgiving altogether and focusing on Christmas because they don't have the money to do both.
It's reasonable enough.
It's reasonable, but this is where we are now.
Mm.
Christmas time there'll be a lot less spending. I
thought Christmas wasn't so big in the States, and I thought it was all about Thanksgiving.
Well, no, it's the two big ones, Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Well, they can always break out some turkey twizzlers for Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Save it all up for Christmas. I mean, look, I think we are. There's no doubt that the globe is having to tussle with the fact that we're heading for a recession. Which actually brings me neatly, we mentioned China earlier. I don't know whether you've been seeing on the news the latest sort of conference.
Yeah, the Party Congress.
Set with a few demonstrations on and doubling down on the COVID policy, which is now proven to be a bit of an irritant to the Chinese people because it's massively affecting their economy now. Massively affecting.
It's a good thing they have no choice.
Yeah, but the point is, how long? A bit like our situation. The reason I mention it, it's a bit like our situation with Truss. That suddenly a leader fails to recognise when it's time to change course or risk everything, with the likelihood of it not ending well. And it does feel like, no matter how authoritarian China is, that they've embarked upon something that could turn very ugly very quickly on them.
What do you think is going to happen?
What do I think is going to happen? How do you mean, what do I think is going to happen?
Xi Jinping will be installed as a leader for life.
Yes.
And there's nothing anyone can do about that.
If they continue on this road...
So what do you think is going to happen? Any sort of dissent will be met with violence and disappearances.
Well, yes.
En masse.
But
they don't care.
Yeah, but you know what happens in the end? You do this to people. The history is littered with it. You do this to people for so long, yes, you can get away with it. But in the finish, it comes back up in your face. And it might not be this week, this month, next month, this decade even. But it does kind of resonate that this kind of approach that they're taking at the moment, this never-ending lockdown, is when they're going to recognise that they're digging a hole for their own economy. They're smashing their own economy, just in the same way that freak that's at number 10 for the last 39 days has done the same.
But again, it's got nothing to do with COVID, though, does it? The zero-COVID policy has got nothing to do with the Chinese economy.
Well, the zero-COVID policy is now affecting the property.
But it's not as significant as a property market.
No, but it's not a perfect storm.
But it's not as significant as a property market. doesn't even pale in comparison.
No, but it's still
it doesn't even pale in comparison.
So they're in trouble.
It's not even a blip.
Do you think that's why they've
their economy is in so much trouble that the no COVID policy makes no difference one way or another? The real issue is the property market.
Yes,
the property bubble that they have.
Oh, massive.
You know, the additional issues that they have.
Property bubble that we all
have. No. It's not even on the same plane as what's going on in China.
I mean, I read in.
Well, hold on a second. So, the property market in China is a huge issue. The fact that the manufacturing sector,
yes,
you know, they were supplying so many goods and services to us, is also going down the toilet. You know, there's now a lot of antitrust issues between the US, Europe, and China, which is also reducing the amount of trade that's happening between the two. And now you have in China that's tacitly supporting Russia, Saudi, and other countries. You know, and they're sort of moving away from the West to the East. You know, they're creating their own swift payment systems that they have in place. They're introducing their own.
But their economy is still in desperate trouble.
No, but for them, it's like a wave. There's going to be some turbulence to move from west to east.
But the difference.
But even if there's a bit of pain, they're looking outside of the West and moving towards other countries. So in the long term, you know, they can resolve these issues.
It's just all a wave, isn't it? Here, it's just a wave goodbye.
Yeah, but you know, we're in as much trouble.
Oh, of course we're not. I mean, as I said, the globe is
not on our side.
The globe is heading into a recession. I looked here somewhere and I've missed the actual thing I was actually looking for, which I thought was a really interesting statistic. But anyway, I couldn't find it.
If that's the case, let's wrap it up.
Well, I think we've come to the round conclusion that that's it for her. She's done.
Yeah.
But quick aside, just before we leave, who do you reckon? If this happens, which I expect it will, and fairly quickly, as indicated, as I said, even Sir Graham Brady.
Boris is coming back.
You think Boris will come back?
No, but I think it'd be hilarious. I think it would be hilarious if he did, though.
Wouldn't it just? Because he said, didn't he, hasta la vista? Didn't he do that whole thing of Arnie Schwarzenegger in Parliament?
I don't remember. But I can.
As if like there was kept the door open or ajar for himself to return. I don't think so, personally.
I think there are enough people that would like to see him come back. It'd just be funny, wouldn't it? I mean, it would make for a good story if he comes back. You know, it would just be a funny way to close the circle. Very unlikely, but it'll be hilarious. I
can't say it.
But one way or another, he'd lose the election anyway. So it doesn't really matter who comes into power.
No, I think they're totally.
It could be anybody. Yeah. Really, they could pick someone out of a hat. Say, okay, you're prime minister. Within a year, they'll be gone anyway. Right? Within a year, they'll be gone.
Yeah.
You know, they'll call an election. Conservative Party will lose by
God knows how many seats. Just a poison chalice, isn't it?
Yeah, who really wants the job? That might be the other one. Even people that might be offered it might be like, yeah, you know what?
Mm-mm. I'm surprised Hunt took the job as Chancellor. Or did he think he was going to get into number 10 by the back door?
That might exactly be it. He might actually be the heir apparent. You know, okay, let's put him as Chancellor. You know, we can just sort of bump him up to Prime Minister. He'll be good for a year.
But that would mean an
election, then he'll be the opposition.
That would mean we would, for the same government. This is the irony. For a government that was elected 12 years ago, party was elected 12 years, would then effectively be on its fifth prime minister in 12 years. And if I'm not mistaken, if if it was Jeremy Hunt, that would mean we'd be on our 7th Chancellor.
Why is that funny? What difference does that make?
Well, of course, it makes a hell of difference.
Why?
Well, the idea is if somebody's pretty good at the job and makes a good fist of it, that they remain there at least for a sort of certain amount of time. Okay. We've got through how many just in the last 6 weeks?
At least we know we make our mistakes and we move on. That's how life works. By that logic, let's just keep Truss in power.
No, good God, no, get rid of her. She's got to go. Then. Oh, I can't wait to see the back of her, except there's a certain side of it.
Better to do it this way.
Yeah.
Than to keep someone on who's incapable.
What begs the question is how on earth, and we said this ages ago, how the fucking hell on earth did they give her the job in the first place? Wasn't it plain to see during the debate? I know you didn't perhaps watch them.
No.
For me, it was as plain as the nose on my face that she would be a disaster. She was to being Prime Minister what John Sargent was to Strictly Come Down to.
Let's stop bashing, eh? Let's get on to the next topic.
Right, well, there we go.
All right.
On that note, well, I didn't have a quote.
That's all right.
It's very simple. There's a quote by Simon Randall, my good self. Liz Truss, sod off.
Have a good day, everybody.